Mental Health Month 2022. Mental Health Month 2022. I want to talk about mental health today. I want to talk about mental health today, mental illness today. A growing number of adults in the United States suffer from mental illness and taking their own lives. 800,000 people die from suicide every year. That's 1 out of every 40 seconds someone is committing suicide. And not only that, at least 8.4 million people in the United States are caring for someone with a mental or emotional issue. Now we look at what I just said. Mental illness is big. It's nothing small. And the sad part about mental illness is so many people suffer from mental illness in silence because they are afraid to go get help. They are afraid to admit they are suffering from mental illness. Now, first of all, I want to say this. There is no face to mental illness. There's not a face to mental illness. It crosses all boundaries. Mental illness crosses all boundaries of age, sex, race, economic stature. It crosses all boundaries. You can suffer from mental illness at any age, no matter whether you're male or female, no matter what race you are, or your economic stature. That means no matter how rich or poor you are, what type of job you work, what your career is. Mental illness crosses all boundaries. It does not have a face. It does not have a face. Now, the biggest thing that happened at the beginning of 2021 of someone that committed suicide that still doesn't rest good in my spirit, that still upsets me every time I think about it today, is Cheslie Kryste. The former Miss USA ended her life after she jumped off of the 29th floor of a New York high-rise building. It still doesn't resonate good in my spirit, even today when I think about her death. You know, when we look at her and we look at all her accomplishments in life, the things that she had accomplished, the places she had went in life, she is someone you would not think that would suffer or did suffer from mental illness. Now we look at Cheslie Kryste. She was an American television correspondent, model, a beauty pageant title holder, who was crowned Miss USA 2019. As Miss USA, she represented the United States at the Miss Universe 2019 competition and finished in the top 10. So when we look at her life and how beautiful she was and what she represented and all the things she had accomplished, you know, it still bothers me today when I look back at it, you know, how she still committed suicide. She still suffered from mental illness. So it is so true when I say to you all that mental illness it crosses all boundaries. It doesn't have a face. It crosses all the boundaries of age, race, whether race or sex, whether you're female or male. No matter how much money you have, how successful you are. Anyone can suffer from mental illness. And the sad part about mental illness is a lot of people suffer in silence. They are afraid to talk about the fact that they have mental illness, that they're dealing with something heavy in their mind, spiritually, mentally, or emotionally, that is causing them some type of distress. They hate to go to a doctor and sit down and talk to someone, because going to a doctor and sitting down talking to someone for help is admitting they're dealing with some type of mental health issue. But the very thing that we have to remember is when we suffer from mental illness is that we are not alone. We are not alone. It says right here, what I just brought to you all before, it says that 8.4 million people in the United States are caring for someone with a mental or emotional issue. And it says 800,000 people die from suicide every year. That's every person out of 40 seconds is committing suicide because of mental illness. Mental illness is a very how I want to word this, a very serious topic that has to be dealt with when it comes down to you suffering mental illness. And it's something that you just can't fight and help yourself and do alone. If it means sitting down, talking to a doctor, psychologist, therapist, a counselor, or someone to talk to about your feelings and talk about your emotions and the things that you are going through physically, mentally, and emotionally in your mind, that is what you need to do. Because mental illness, a lot of times, is something you cannot fight on your own. It involves a lot of times going to see a doctor, going to see a psychologist, a therapist, or a counselor to talk about your issues and to get help. And a lot of times when you go to a doctor, you go to them and you tell them your symptoms of how you're feeling, what you're thinking, and your behaviors, how they have changed drastically, how you're feeling uncomfortable when it comes down to your feelings, your thinkings, and your behavior. It's okay to sit down with someone and talk about those issues and how long you've been experiencing the changes of what you've been going through. Especially if your feelings and your thinking and your behavior, your feelings emotionally, spiritually, and physically is having an impact on you and a big change. It could be that you are suffering from some type of mental illness and you need to sit down and talk to someone. So don't be afraid to sit down and talk to someone about what you are going through and not suffer alone. 9 times out of 10, most people that suffer alone, the only end they see is suicide. They don't take time, so let me go talk to someone. In other cases, they do sit down and they talk to someone. They do go to a psychologist or a therapist and a counselor, and still that is not enough. But at least if you're going to a therapist or a psychologist or a counselor, you are going somewhere and you're talking to someone and you are dealing with it and you're not suffering alone. It gives you a way out to find some type of help or some type of way of treating mental health issues that you're going through. Now we'll look at mental illness. Mental illness are health conditions involving changes in emotion, thinking, or behavior. Mental illness are associated with distress and or problems functioning in society, work, or family. So if you're seeing that you're having problems functioning in a healthy way and there are big changes in you when it comes down to social and society with work, family, and different areas of your life, it could be that you are suffering from some type of mental health issue in some type of way. Now, I remember when I was a young girl, I shared this story before, when I was a young woman, I was about 24, 25, I can't remember which one it was, 24, 25. I found out my daughter had leukemia. And finding out my daughter had leukemia put me in a place of depression. And at that time, I noticed that my feelings and my emotions had changed. And I know that there was something having an effect on my feelings and my emotions at the time. Me being so young, I did not know that I was suffering from depression due to dealing with all the issues of my daughter having leukemia. Being put in the hospital, find out my daughter had cancer, had leukemia for the very first time. Dealing with that sent me into a depression. Now, I did not know anything about depression. I did not know what depression was. But I knew there was a change in my feelings, and I know there was a change in my emotion. And I found myself being sad a lot more than normal. Like, this is not normal. But I did not know what it was, and I couldn't put a face to it. So I remember calling my mom one day, and she said, And I remember some of the words my mom said, and one of the things she said, I think you suffer from depression, and I think you need to get help. And I remember saying depression, and I remember saying, I can't be suffering from depression. What I'm feeling can't be depression. But lo and behold, that week, I went inside and sat down and talked to a therapist, and I went and sat down and talked to a counselor, and found out I was suffering from depression for the very first time in my life, dealing with a child having cancer. Dealing with my daughter with us finding out, with me finding out she had cancer, sent me into depression. We was locked in the hospital for a whole entire month, could not go home whatsoever because of the chemotherapy and the treatment she was taking. Watching her suffer, watching her go through chemotherapy and the bone marrow treatments, seeing all of the things that and experiencing all the things that my daughter was going through put me in depression because I was a young mom and I was scared. I didn't have a sense of understanding what was going on. So let me tell you something. Me finding out I had depression, I did not know what it was. I couldn't have told you what it was. But because of my mom, she saw and noticed that I suffered. And I was suffering from that at that point in time in my life. I went and sat down. To make a long story short, I went and sat down and talked to a counselor. I went and sat down and talked to a therapist. And that was the best move I could have made in my whole entire life. The things I learned from the psychologist and the things I learned from the therapist and from the counselor really helped me out emotional. And those same things that I learned, I still apply to my life today. It was because of that I'm still here today and I'm functioning as a healthy adult. But you, like I said before, mental illness don't have a face and it don't have an age. I suffered at this as a young woman dealing with my daughter having leukemia. You could suffer from mental illness at any age. And all of a sudden, boom, there it is. It's in your face. Any age. Woman, man, boy, girl, any sex. At any point in time in your life, any race. Depression doesn't have a face. But if you notice there is a drastic change in your feelings, your emotion, and your thinking, and your activity, that is causing you to be off balanced, where it's making you feel more emotional, making you feel more sad. Like for me, I was just dealing with sadness over my daughter that sent me into depression. But if you notice there's a change, it could be mental health, and you could be dealing with mental health issues. Don't be afraid to go see a doctor. Don't be afraid to go see a psychologist. Don't be afraid to go see a therapist or a counselor and sit down and talk to someone about your feelings and what you're going through. For most people, sometimes you just need to sit down and talk to someone. Make you feel a ton better. You just need to talk to someone and get a new perspective of what you're going through to make you feel better. Or it could be treatments to make you feel better. But whatever the case is, don't be afraid to sit down, talk to someone, and find the proper help that you need to get a handle of whatever mental health issues you are going through. Because it is very important not to suffer alone. Because when you suffer with mental illness alone, that's what it makes you feel like you are alone. And a lot of times it leads to suicide. Now, brothers and sisters, I brought this video because this is Mental Health Month 2022. And I wanted to bring a video on it because I want to do more videos on mental health. That is more topics that I want to speak about and cover here on my podcast, here on Anchor. This channel is based around spirituality and mental health issues. For anyone that watched this video, God bless you, brothers and sisters. God bless you. God bless. God bless. Love you and God bless.